The silent colony captain, Alina Vasquez, felt something was wrong the moment her ship dropped out of hyperspace. The Crimson Dawn colony should have been buzzing with radio chatter, navigation beacons, and the usual traffic of a thriving settlement. Instead, there was nothing but the cold silence of space. "Captain, I'm not picking up any signals from the colony," reported Lieutenant Hayes from the communications station, his voice tight with concern. "No orbital platforms, no civilian traffic, nothing." Alina gripped the armrest of her command chair, staring at the main screen where Crimson Dawn's planet rotated peacefully. The world looked beautiful from orbit, with its blue oceans and green countenance, but something felt terribly wrong. This colony housed 2.3 million people, including families, children, and elderly colonists who had spent decades building their new home. "Take us in closer," she ordered. "Full sensor sweep. I want to know what happened to our people." The U.S. Meridian glided through the debris field that had once been the colony's orbital defense network. Twisted metal and scorched hull fragments drifted past the viewports like a graveyard of dreams. Alina had served in the Colonial Defense Force for 15 years, but she had never seen destruction this complete. "Captain," called Ensign Torres from the science station, his voice barely above a whisper. "I'm detecting massive energy weapon signatures across the planet's surface. The readings suggest complete bombardment of all major population centers." Elena's blood ran cold. "Life signs." Torres worked frantically at his console, running scan after scan. His face grew pale as the results came in. "I'm reading less than 1,000 life signs across the entire planet. That's out of 2.3 million people." The bridge fell silent, except for the hum of the ship's systems. Alina had known many of the colonists personally. They were farmers, engineers, teachers, people who had left Earth seeking a better life among the stars. They had built schools and hospitals, raised families, and created a thriving community. Now they were gone. "Take us down to the surface," Alina commanded, her voice steady despite the rage building inside her. "We need to find survivors and document what happened here." The Meridian descended through the atmosphere, passing over what had once been New Geneva, the colony's capital city. Where once stood gleaming towers and bustling streets, now only smoldering ruins remained. The bombardment had been systematic and thorough. Leaving nothing but rubble and ash dot, they found the first survivor in an underground bunker on the outskirts of the city. Dr. Sarah Chen, the colony's chief medical officer, emerged from the ruins. Like a ghost, her clothes were torn, her face streaked with soot and tears, but her eyes burned with a fierce determination to tell the truth. "They came without warning," she told Alina as the rescue team treated her wounds. 3 days ago, ships unlike anything we'd ever seen, black as space itself with red markings. They didn't try to communicate, didn't demand surrender. They just started killing. Alina knelt beside the doctor, her heart heavy with grief and growing anger. "Who were they, Sarah? What did they want?" "The Kethran Empire," Sarah spat the words. Like venom, their leader broadcast a message after the first wave of bombing. Said humans were a disease spreading through the galaxy. Said we needed to be cleansed before we infected other worlds with our presence. The doctor's hands shook as she continued. "They hunted us like animals, used ground troops to flush out anyone who survived the bombing. I watched them execute children, Alina, children who were begging for their parents." Alina felt something, cold and hard, settle in her chest. The Kethron Empire had made a grave mistake. They thought they were dealing with soft colonists, easy targets to intimidate other human settlements. They had no idea what they had just awakened. How many others made it to the bunkers? Alina asked. Maybe 800 across the entire colony. We had emergency protocols, but nothing could have prepared us for this level of destruction. They used weapons that could level city blocks with single shots. Our planetary defenses lasted less than an hour. Alina activated her communicator. All teams, complete your sweeps and return to the ship. We're leaving orbit in 2 hours. She looked back at Dr. Chen. Sarah, I need you to come with us. Earth Command needs to hear your testimony. Back aboard the Meridian, Alina sat in her quarters staring at the report she had just finished. The words seemed inadequate to describe the horror they had witnessed. How do you convey the magnitude of genocide in a simple military report? How do you capture the rage that was building in her chest? She activated the quantum communicator and sent an emergency transmission to Earth. The message would take 3 days to reach home, but when it did, it would change everything. Admiral Marcus Kane received Elena's message while reviewing fleet deployment schedules in his office at Earth Command. He was a veteran of the border wars, a man who had seen enough conflict to last several lifetimes. But nothing had prepared him for the images and testimony from Crimson Dawn. The holographic display showed the ruins of New Geneva, the mass graves discovered by the rescue teams, the few survivors huddled in underground shelters. Dr. Chun's testimony played in Kane's office. Her voice steady, but her eyes haunted as she described the systematic slaughter of her friends and neighbors. Kane replayed the message 3 times before calling an emergency session of the Defense Council. Within hours, representatives from every human world were connected via quantum link, their faces grim as they absorbed the terrible news. The Kethron Empire has declared war on humanity, Kane announced to the assembled leaders. They have committed genocide against our people and made it clear they intend to continue until we are extinct. This cannot and will not stand. The response was swift and unanimous. From the core worlds to the frontier colonies, humanity spoke with one voice. The Kethrons had awakened something they did not understand. Humans could be peaceful, could coexist with alien neighbors, could build and create and dream. But they could also become something far more terrible when pushed too far. I'm calling for total mobilization, Kane continued. Every ship, every soldier, every resource we have. We're going to show the Kethrons what happens when you murder human families. The mobilization began immediately. On Earth, the massive shipyards of Luna and Mars shifted to wartime production. Ships that had been mothballed after the border wars were pulled from storage and refitted. Civilian vessels were converted into troop transports and supply ships. The entire human economy transformed overnight into a machine of war. From the frontier colonies came volunteer militia units, farmers and miners and engineers who had never fired a shot in anger but who were willing to learn. From the core worlds came the professional military, elite units with decades of training and experience. They all had one thing in common now. They had seen the images from Crimson Dawn, and they wanted justice. The fleet assembly point was established at Proxima Station, humanity's largest military installation. As ships arrived from across human space, the station's traffic control systems were overwhelmed. Battleships and cruisers, destroyers and fighters, support vessels and medical frigates, all converging on a single point in space. Captain Elena Vasquez watched from the Meridian's bridge as the fleet took shape around them. She had never imagined so many ships in one place, The tactical display showed over 700,000 vessels of all sizes, from massive dreadnoughts to single-seat fighters. It was the largest military force humanity had ever assembled. "Captain," reported Lieutenant Hayes, "Admiral Kane is requesting your presence aboard the flagship." Alina made her way through the crowded corridors of the command ship, past soldiers and officers preparing for the greatest military campaign in human history. The briefing room was packed with senior commanders from every branch of the military, their faces reflecting the same grim determination that had taken hold of the entire human species. "Admiral." Kane stood before a holographic display showing Kethron space, his weathered face set in hard lines. "Ladies and gentlemen, we are about to embark on a mission that will define humanity's place in this galaxy. The Kethrons believe they can exterminate us world by world, colony by colony. They are about to learn how wrong they are." The Admiral activated a series of tactical displays showing intelligence gathered by long-range scouts. The Kethron Empire controls 47 star systems across 3 sectors. Their military consists of approximately 200,000 ships of various classes. They have held their territory through intimidation and overwhelming force against smaller civilizations. Kane's voice grew harder. "They have never faced an enemy with our resources, our determination, or our capacity for organized violence. In 72 hours, we will enter Kethron space and begin systematic destruction of their military capability. We will not stop until their empire is broken and their threat to humanity is permanently eliminated." Alina felt a chill at the Admiral's words. This was not going to be a war of conquest or territorial expansion. This was going to be an extermination campaign, a demonstration to the galaxy that humanity would not tolerate genocide against its people. The final preparations took another day. Supply convoys loaded ammunition and provisions for an extended campaign. Medical ships prepared for massive casualties. Intelligence officers briefed unit commanders on Kethron ship designs and tactical doctrines. Chaplains moved through the fleet, offering comfort to soldiers about to face combat. As the fleet prepared to depart, messages poured in from across human space. Children sent drawings of spaceships defeating alien monsters. Workers in factories promised to build more weapons and supplies. Elderly veterans too old to fight offered their blessing to the young soldiers, carrying humanity's banner into battle. The quantum communicators carried one message that reached every ship in the fleet. It was from Dr. Sarah Chen, now recovering in a medical facility on Earth. Her voice was steady as she spoke. "To the 700,000 ships about to carry humanity's wrath to the stars. To everyone who will fight for Crimson Dawn, thank you, my friends." And neighbors died believing that someone would remember them, that someone would make the killers pay. You are that someone. Bring justice to the stars, and let the galaxy know that humanity protects its own. Admiral Kane's voice echoed across the fleet communication system as the massive armada prepared to jump to hyperspace. "All ships, prepare for departure. Today we show the galaxy what happens when you murder human children. Today we teach the Kethrons the price of genocide." The 700,000 ships of humanity's greatest armada activated their hyperdrives simultaneously, their combined energy signature creating a tear in space-time that would be detected across 3 sectors. As they vanished into hyperspace, leaving only empty void behind. One fact was certain: the Kethron Empire's days were numbered. *The Storm of Vengeance. Kethron Border Patrol was destroyed before they could even send a distress signal. Commander Vexman, watched his sensor display in growing horror as contact after contact appeared on his screens. What had started as a few dozen ships quickly became hundreds, then thousands, then numbers his computer couldn't accurately count. Alert. The High Command, he ordered his communications officer. Tell them the humans have arrived in force. Massive force. I count over 500,000 vessels. But it was already too late. Human fighters swept through his patrol fleet like a hurricane of destruction. Advanced targeting systems locked onto every Kethron ship simultaneously. Within minutes, the entire border defense network was reduced to expanding clouds of debris. Admiral Kane stood on the bridge of his flagship, the UES Retribution, watching the tactical display as his forces swept into Kethron space. The opening phase was proceeding exactly as planned. Surprise was complete, and the enemy was reacting with panic rather than coordinated resistance. Admiral, we're receiving surrender offers from 6 Kethron outposts, reported his communications officer. They're requesting terms for safe passage of civilian populations. Kane's expression didn't change. Remind all fleet commanders of our operational parameters. We are here to eliminate the Kethron military threat permanently. Civilian populations will be relocated to designated safe zones, but there will be no negotiations with military forces. The human fleet moved through Kethron space like a plague of metal locusts. Every military installation, every shipyard, every orbital platform capable of supporting warfare was systematically destroyed. The Kethrons had never faced an enemy with such overwhelming numerical superiority and technological advancement. Captain Elena Vasquez led her battle group against the Kethron naval base at Zarian Prime. The massive station had been constructed over decades, a testament to Kethron engineering and military might. Its defensive systems included energy shields capable of withstanding direct hits from capital ship weapons and automated defense platforms that could engage hundreds of targets simultaneously. All ships target the shield generators, Alina commanded. Pattern Delta formation. Let's crack this station like an egg. The human ships moved with precision that spoke of intensive training and coordination. Each captain knew their role. Each weapons officer had memorized their targeting priorities. When Alina gave the order to fire, over 200 ships unleashed their weapons simultaneously. The Zarian Prime Station's shields flared and sparked under the concentrated bombardment. Energy cascades rippled across the defensive screens as the shield generators overloaded and failed one by one. Within 15 minutes, the station's outer defenses were gone, leaving the massive structure vulnerable to direct attack. Begin surgical strikes on military targets, Alina ordered. Want that shipyard capability eliminated, but avoid civilian habitation sections. Human precision weapons carved through the station's hull, targeting missile storage facilities, fighter bays, and command centers. Secondary explosions rippled through the structure as ammunition stores detonated, but the civilian quarters remained untouched. This was justice, not mindless slaughter. Meanwhile, the main human fleet was approaching Kethros Prime, the heavily defended capital world of the Kethron Empire. Emperor Vexkar had been in power for over 2 centuries, ruling an empire built on the conquest and subjugation of weaker civilizations. He had never faced an enemy capable of threatening his homeworld. The planetary defense network around Kethros Prime was the most advanced in Kethron space. Orbital fortresses with firepower equivalent to battleships, minefields stretching across entire sectors, automated defense platforms that could engage targets at extreme range. The Kethrans had spent generations building these defenses, confident that no enemy could breach them. Admiral Kane studied the tactical display showing the approaches to Kethron's prime. The Kethron defenses were impressive, but they had been designed to stop invasions numbering in the thousands of ships. They had never been tested against a force of 700,000 vessels. All fleet groups begin synchronized assault, Kane ordered. Phase 1, eliminate outer perimeter defenses. Phase 2, suppress orbital platforms. Phase 3, establish blockade and begin ground operations. The human fleet moved like a perfectly orchestrated symphony of destruction. The outer defensive perimeter, designed to channel attacking forces into killing zones, was simply overwhelmed by the sheer number of human ships. Defense platforms capable of destroying entire battle groups found themselves facing hundreds of targets simultaneously. Captain Rodriguez led the ground assault forces, elite Marines trained in urban warfare and planetary assault operations. As the orbital defenses fell one by one, his troops prepared for the most challenging phase of the operation, taking control of Kethro's prime's major cities and military installations. Remember, Rodriguez addressed his unit commanders. We're here to eliminate military resistance and demonstrate human resolve. Civilian casualties are to be minimized whenever possible, but our primary mission is the complete dismantling of Kethran military capability. The first wave of human dropships screamed through Kethran's prime's atmosphere, their hulls glowing red-hot from atmospheric entry. Kethran ground forces, impressive by the standards of their previous conquests, found themselves facing an enemy with superior technology, training, an overwhelming numerical advantage. Emperor Dexkar watched from his palace command center as his empire crumbled around him. The humans had systematically destroyed every military installation in Kethran space. His fleets were gone, his shipyards were burning wreckage, and now enemy soldiers were fighting in the streets of his capital city. Great Emperor, his military advisor spoke with trembling voice. The humans are requesting your presence for surrender negotiations. They have surrounded the palace and are demanding unconditional capitulation. Dexkar's clawed hands gripped the armrests of his throne. In his 2 centuries of rule, he had conquered dozens of worlds and enslaved entire civilizations. He had become accustomed to being the predator, never the prey. The concept of surrender was alien to his understanding. What are their terms? He asked, though he dreaded the answer. Complete dismantling of all military forces, relocation of the Kethron population to designated worlds under human supervision, and war crimes trials for all military commanders involved in the Crimson Dawn massacre. The Emperor closed his eyes, finally understanding the magnitude of his miscalculation. The humans were not the weak, scattered species his intelligence reports had described. They were apex predators who had been content to remain peaceful until provoked. The massacre at Crimson Dawn had awakened something terrible and implacable. Outside the palace, human forces established control over the capital city with methodical efficiency. Kethran civilians were processed and relocated to safe zones, while military personnel were disarmed and detained for questioning. The operation proceeded without the chaos and brutality that had characterized Kethron conquests. Admiral Kane arrived on Kethros Prime as the final pockets of resistance were being eliminated. He walked through the conquered capital with Captain Elena Baskis, observing the systematic dismantling of Kethron military infrastructure. The humans worked with professional precision, but there was no joy in their victory, only grim satisfaction at a necessary task completed. "It's over," Elena said, watching as the last Kethron battle flag was lowered from the central command. Complex. Their empire is broken. Their military eliminated. They'll never threaten human colonies again. Kane nodded, but his expression remained stern. This was necessary, but it changes us. We came here as explorers and colonists. We're leaving as conquerors. The galaxy will remember this day and know that humanity cannot be pushed too far. The aftermath of the campaign saw the complete transformation of the former Kethron Empire. Human administrators worked with moderate Kethron leaders to establish new governments focused on peaceful coexistence rather than military expansion. War crimes tribunals processed those responsible for the Crimson Dawn massacre, ensuring that justice was served for the 2.3 million victims. Dr. Sarah Chen attended the final tribunal session, watching as the Kethron commanders who had ordered the massacre faced judgment for their crimes. She thought of her friends and neighbors, the children and elderly who had died for no reason other than their humanity. Their deaths had not been in vain. They had shown the galaxy the price of genocide. The human fleet gradually dispersed, returning to their home systems with a new understanding of their place in the galaxy. They had proven themselves capable of overwhelming force when necessary, but they had also demonstrated restraint and justice in victory. Other alien civilizations took note, understanding that humanity preferred peace but was fully capable of total war when provoked. Captain Alina Vasquez returned to patrol duty along the former Kethron border, now part of an expanded human security zone. The Meridian passed by the memorial station established at Crimson Dawn, where 2.3 million names were inscribed in quantum crystal, their light visible from orbit as a reminder of what had been lost and what had been avenged. The galaxy had learned a crucial lesson: humanity could be pushed, but never broken. They could be threatened, but never intimidated. And those who chose genocide as their weapon of choice would face the combined wrath of 700,000 ships, carrying justice to the stars. In the years that followed, no alien civilization dared to threaten human colonies with extinction. They had seen what happened to the Kethron Empire, and they understood that humanity protected its own with absolute determination. The massacre at Crimson Dawn had intended to weaken humanity through terror. Instead, it had forged them into the galaxy's most formidable force for justice. The message was clear across all star systems. Humanity had awakened, and the galaxy would never be the same.